Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to do some router work on this wall plaque here, which is going to be routed out on recycled pine. I just take 10 minutes to sand it all down. When I get it, it's quite rough like that, but when you do a bit of sanding, it really comes up nice. This was free wood, by the way, warehouse across the road from me. They had 14 of these ready to throw out, 4 foot by 12 inches or whatever they were. Help yourself, take the lot. So I got lucky on that day. So recycled wood if possible. So we print out our image here. I love her, not for the way she silenced my demons, but for the way her demons danced with mine. Don't know why, I just took a shine to this one. I was literally just sat there on the laptop, and this one just came out to me. So we're going to route it all out. And what we're going to do is outset lettering. So we're going to remove basically all the white sections, leaving the black lettering. Inset, you would remove all the black letters, leaving the white background. As always for me, we've got our template sorted. We've stuck it down with painter's tape and good old carbon paper for me underneath. And literally go around with this with a pen, pencil, whatever you prefer. I prefer to use a biro, it just stands out better. Take 5 minutes, it's all part of the process. And then when you remove your template, you can use that over and over again. I've seen some router folk actually glue that to the wood and route over the top of the paper and then sand it all off afterwards. Too much mess, too much light hard work for me. So 5 minutes with a bit of carbon paper. Nice fresh carbon paper. Not this one, this is far too dry, you won't get anything with that. And there we have it. There's all our pattern template ready to route out. Take a couple of minutes to shade in the areas you either want to remove or you want to keep. We want to remove all this background, so take your time, go around, shade it all in. You will go away, come back, start removing the inner of the letters. Well, that's your project, finish. And I know people that have done it. So mark off the areas you want to keep or remove. Now for routing out purposes, as always for me, these little CNC bits, they're actually programmable, something a mouthful, but I just call them CNC bits. And they come in different degrees. These are 20s, you can see there. These ones are 15s and a 10 in that one. They do have a small shaft on them, a 3.175mm. Now that will fit a Dremel, no problem if you've got the Dremel router attachment. For your 1/4 inch router, you need what they call an adapter collet, just a simple tube like that. And that slots in there. That one will be 1/4 inch shaft, 6.35mm. If your router takes half inch shafts, you want a bigger adapter. So that will fit our router, no problem. Depth wise, I work on 3mm. That is plenty for putting paint in or resin. And you can see from that, it's literally the same thickness as your CNC bit. That one's just slightly a bit deeper. And these are only rough guidelines. You can purchase depth gauges, but I'll find a piece of wood like that, cut in 3 or 4 different grooves, and your router can sit on there, and you basically set your router bit to whatever depth you want. So 3mm for us today, and the idea, we're going to route out around all the letters. When you're doing your routing, we want to route out up to the letter, so we just want to be to the side of that, and the side obviously all the way around. If it was inset, we would route up to the inside. Never route out on your lines on 99% of your project. You've got a small area like this. If you route out on the line there, by the time we've gone down 3mm and on the line there, you're going to narrow that distance here. So this one we want to route up to the line, that one up to the line. You'll see as we go along. So we'll basically go all the lettering. That will be our slowest piece. Not forgetting to do the framework. You can see from this one, we've marked off a nice little frame, and all we do is go around with our router just the same, should I say, and then we remove all this section, we'll have that frame ready made. That's just the way I like to do it. You could route straight off that and pop a frame on afterwards separately if you wish. So a little CNC bit there for all the line works. Once we've done that, I will come in with my end milling bits. Remember, there is different bits out there. These are bits I use, and if you're just setting off packet of CNC bits, packet end milli bits, that is all you need. Not forgetting that little adapter, of course, and you are good to go. As you progress into this little hobby, you want to get a bit more with your bits. There's profile bits, liner bits, spiral up cups, really fancy things, but they do come with a big price tag. So if you're just setting off, these little pieces are ideal. They have the same shaft on, 3.175mm, and they just simply remove your CNC bit, you slide that in there, up to that little barrier. They do come without the barriers now. I prefer the barrier myself. I've got a packet here that don't roll off. These are the same bits, but without the barrier on. So if you can't find those with that plastic covering on, not too sure what that's for. Obviously different size heads on it, I assuming. They are identical. And we'll set that to the same depth, remember, on here. Or I tend to route out maybe the centre of the O there and use that as a depth gauge, and we will use that to go around the old piece. So it's a nice steady project. There's bigger bits out there. I've got some in there that would remove this in seconds, but obviously we're not going to fit into these tighter areas. Once that's all done, we'll sand it down, give it a nice little tidy up, and then we're going to put a bit of resin on the back of this one. Normally you could paint all that first, sand it over, and then just paint your letters separately. Obviously if it was inset lettering, you paint inside all these letters, sand it all down, bit of staining, you are good to go. So there's different options for you. So we've popped that into our little adapter collet. We'll set it to 3mm and basically start doing all the lines on this one. Right, so we've done all our lettering. It's a bit dusty, this wood today, but remember, it's just free wood, and they are made out of different strips. And I'll find as I'm routing through one, it's going through quite nice, and as we come on to another section, it's a bit not as nice as, if it makes sense, and then it smooths out again. But it's free wood, so that's the best type of wood for me. Now the next stage is to cut out our frame. Remember, we've got to remove all this back section yet, so all these letters will stand up by at least 3mm. Now for me personally, I will just do this freehand with a router. I'm just not too bothered, it's perfectly straight. My router does come with what they call a micro adjuster. I think I've used it once before, and I believe it might want something like that. And there is some slots in here, and that slides on there. And I think you adjust this, and you can slide that along the wood, and that will give you a perfect straight line. Obviously these adjusters don't come with all the routers. So the next option is to basically get yourself a nice straight edge. Put it on your wood. We'll try and do it over very roughly just to show you. Put your router into the corner where you want to start with your bit, and pull your wood up so it meets up that section there. Take your router to the opposite corner, pull your wood up the same until it lines up where you want it. And then just get a couple of clamps. I'm just trying to search around now for some clamps. You may have to clamp it to the bench or whatever. But if you get a couple of clamps, you can clamp your wood in position. Get a longer piece of wood, to be honest. Clamp that in position and just use that as your guide. And you can just run that router along there like so. And that will give you a nice straight edge. And then we take it off, spin it around and do the opposite on this side. But for me, we'll just cut it out as it is. And then we'll be on to the next stage, which will be clearing out. Right, there's all our framework, nicely done. Remember, if things aren't quite perfect, once we come in with our little end milling bits here, we can nibble away nicely and just get it where we want it. But for me personally, that's plenty near enough. And you'll see it stand out a lot better once we start removing all this outer section. So we've took the CNC bit from the router. We'll get a few more projects out of that one. So we'll keep that to one side. And we're going to come in one of these end milling bits. Remember, these are just the bits that I use. If you just want to start off on this little hobby, as said before, you won't go far wrong with stuff like that. And they simply pop into your same adapter collet. I've started off with a nice small one because there is some little tight sections to get down the side of these letters here and in these. But I find once I start going, we can soon clear this out. So I might do the full piece, that little one. But there is bigger ones if you want to get these out quicker. But I'm in certain no rush to get these done. So we'll pop this in the router. You notice there I've removed so much. That will be my little depth gauge. So once we pop this end milling bit into the router, we can set it to that gauge there. And basically just start removing all the back section. Let's do that next. Right, so we've made it all the way around with that little end milling bit. I kept the same one all the time. Once you get in the zone, I tend to start thinking about other things and just let the router bit do its work. And you can see from that, we've made it all the way around. And if we get really close, remember, you can still see that pencil line because we've routed out up to the line. So now we've got to clear all that off. Clear inside these. We do not have to focus too much on the background. Remember, we're going to pour resin into that. But if you were going to paint that, you'd obviously want to sand it down a little bit more. It's just a personal choice. For cleaning out purposes, I do use these just cheap eBay special engraving bits. Get one that's got a nice flat bottom piece. And I've got one fairly small. And it's set up on my flexi cable there. And this just attaches to the end of the Dremel. There again, just eBay again. There will be enough just to get inside these little bits here that we couldn't get in with the end milling bit. Just give it a general tidying up. A little bit of sandpaper. Get rid of all those lines. Notice our framework now. That stands out a lot better now. And we've got to be a bit delicate. There's some small letters, but I think they look quite solid. So we might just get away with just skimming over with a little mouse sander. This doesn't quite fit, but it does the job. So we'll skim over with that, give it an all nice tidy up, and then we're looking to paint or stain. Before that, let's just tidy it up. Right, so that's all nicely tidied down and the best we can. We've got rid of all our pencil line, and what I've done is I tend to try and round those letters off just so they're not so sharp. When we put our resin in, we won't be going flush to the top. And maybe go, let's say, 3/4 of the way up, 2mm, whatever it is, just so you can still feel the routed out areas. Now I've gone back and forward a few times. I did start off with a dark teak on this lettering, but I want to put a red background, red, orange and yellow, maybe mix up the colours on the background. I think that dark might just blend in a bit too much. And we haven't used it for a long time, so good old boiled linseed oil. We're just going to cover the whole piece, let that dry. We're going to put a dark frame on. We use a dark teak on the framework. When it's all nicely dried up, we're going to spray a bit of varnish on. One, it just helps give it a nice shine. Like all my projects, all these letters will be nice and shiny, and also it'll help seal the wood a little bit. Not that it needs it, it just helps reduce any of those little bubbles. So for the lettering, we're going straight in with our linseed oil. You could basically just pour it on if you wanted to, but I just want to see what it's like with those letters, and that will be enough. But when we put an orange background, that's going to really pop out instead of doing it a darker colour. And it doesn't matter how we put it on, we can just throw it on. Get those side walls done. I do mention that on all my videos. Remember, like I've just said, the resin is going to come to the top. It will be slightly lowered. And when your resin does cure, you get a concave effect, so it does shrink down slightly. So you might want to be quite level when you finish. Then when you come back, it's just gone down slightly. And you can just, as I say, feel that. Right, I'll continue with this. We'll cover all this up. You might as well do the back section while you're there. Not going to do it any harm whatsoever once it's all nicely dried. And I'll put the darker on the frame. We'll let it dry, and then when we come back, we'll look into the varnish and the resin side of things. Right, so we put the linseed oil on the top section, and we've done the dark teak for the actual framework. That'll definitely stand out fine. While I was there, we've done the back as well. Some lovely wood there. I do like the grain on that one. So no paint on this one this time. I do like a lot of colour in my projects, and we'll compensate by putting a bit of coloured resin in the back. But we've got the nice grain of the wood showing through on the lettering and the frame itself. This all dries fairly quickly. The boiled linseed oil, remember, and the dark teak stain. But I'll leave it for today. We'll come back in 24 hours. We'll spray that bit of varnish on just to shine it up. That will also darken this framework at the same time. And then we're ready to go find some resin and basically just fill all this back section. Right, so it's the next day. Everything's nice and dry. That's stained on really nice. Remember, we've done all these side walls, even on the frame itself. Nothing worse than putting your resin in and have a bit of wood showing all the way around. Remember, we are not going to go flush with the top. So we're going to spray on some varnish. It doesn't matter, it could be yacht varnish. Today it's 151, nice fresh tin. One, it will give us a nice shine. And then two, it just helps seal all this back section, just so there's not so many bubbles on it. I have noticed when I put the linseed oil on, and I will be conscious of this when I come to put the resin in, where some of these little knots were, it might just come through there a little bit. So I want to put a bit of tape on there, and there's like a split all the way down there. We'll tape that off, just be safe. Nothing worse than filling your resin in and it's basically just dripping underneath. And any small hole, that resin will find it. So quick spray over, 3 or 4 coats. I'll take it outside. It's a lovely sunny day today. This will darken that framework down just like that. And that grain's really showing out. Not forgetting to do all that middle section as well. Right, don't forget those side walls. Okay, right, I'll take it outside. When we come back, it's time to pop some resin in. Right, so that varnish is all nicely dry, and that's just enough there. You can see that framework, just to give it a nice shine. For me, that just finishes the project off nicely. You cannot put your resin in and then spray afterwards. It can dull the resin down, so put your varnish on first. And remember, hopefully we've helped seal this up a bit as well. Right, resin today. Vista 1 resin. Like your resin, they come in 2 parts. You have A, your resin, if I just swap those over, and B, your hardener. And this is what they call a 1-to-1 mix. So 1 part A to 1 part B. Some resins are 2-to-1, so you would have twice as much as A to B. Some resins are 3-to-1, so 3 times as much as A to B. Some resins you mix by volume, which is this one is, so basically the same amount of A and B. Some resins you mix by weight, so you will want some digital scales. So this is a nice, easy one today. So A and B, I use these little plastic beaker things. They're ideal. You get a pack of 100 for next to nothing, and they have little grooves at the side. So I tend to mark off A. I've gone up 4 grooves, and B, we've gone up 4 grooves. So they're identical, obviously. And the idea, you put A into there, B into there, and I just transfer B into A because it flows easier. They do say transfer A and B into a 3rd beaker. Personally myself, it's something I've never done, and I've never had any issues. For me, you're just wasting another beaker. So I'll mix this off camera. I like to do smaller batches. It's no good mixing half a cup of each. If you do a full cup like that of mixed resin, you could have what they call a flash cure. And it's happened on to me once, where as I was mixing it, it just set in the beaker itself. There's a reaction, it gets really warm, and it just sets solid. So small batches, mix another one, and carry on like so. It's definitely a lot easier. For mixing purposes, these plastic knife, forks, or spoons are ideal. They're going to pack it of plenty. And they have a little groove in the side at the back there, and that's ideal for mixing. And then we can scoop it in, just nicely feed it where we want it. There is syringes out there. If you want to try something else, it is possible to suck the resin up and squirt it in. That didn't work for me. And also these pipettes, you get a pack of 100 for next to nothing. If you cut the end down, it is possible to suck up some resin there and squeeze it where you want it. Same again, that didn't quite work for me. And for colouring, we are just going to go for the one colour, red. Originally I was going to do a yellow, fading into orange, fading into red. But there's quite a lot going on here with all the lettering. It's just going to make it a bit more too complicated. Or black would be a nice colour. But because we've got this nice little wooden frame, I think red is going to stick out nicely. And just cheap acrylic reds. We'll drop a bit in our resin once it's mixed. Give it a good mixing. And basically just start filling this one in. Once we've filled it in, we'll need a lighter that I've just remembered. We'll take this one for now. And we'll just skim over the top 2 or 3 times. That just helps all those air bubbles come to the top. And when you're doing resin, remember, don't follow me. You want proper gloves on, proper resin mask, and get some ventilation into whatever room you're doing it in. It is a chemical after all, and if you're going to be breathing it in a lot, or you get it on the skin, I've never had any trouble myself, but that's just my opinion. So, protection, as always, just do not follow me. Right, we'll mix our bit of resin up, A and B, and then we come back, we'll add a bit of paint, give a good mixing, and basically just start filling this one in. Right, so there's our first batch of resin, nicely mixed. We've got no concerns about any bubbles in there. Remember, we're going to go across with our lighter, and that will help lose all of those. And don't be concerned if it's not too clear. That would clear in time, but there's no need for us to sit and wait for it to clear, because obviously we're going to put colour into it. So acrylic red, They do say 10% of whatever volume you've mixed. Personally myself, I'll just put a bit in, see what it looks like. And if we need a bit more, we just mix a bit more in. Now I want this to be quite thick, because normally I have a dark background. When I've done the stain on my frame, if I was doing the left as the same, I would do all this, give it nice and dark. But that's quite light at the back, so we want a good colour, remember. So I think we're going to go a bit more in there. We have a rough idea what we're doing, don't we? Give it a good mix round. We have plenty of time to play with it, but don't go off and disappear downtown for half an hour, because you've got no chance when you come back. Depending on how warm it is outside, I think you've got a good 15 minutes, 20 minutes. They do say half an hour on some of them. That's nice and runny. So we'll pop a bit in there first, just to get us going. See what it looks like. Now it will flow to a certain extent, but I like to get a cocktail stick, and that's certainly going to help us push it into these tighter areas. Let's try a bit more on there. Remember, in the tight areas, we can scoop it up like so, and just drop it in there, like that. Okay, I'm going to spread this around roughly, because if we mix up another batch, and it's not quite the same red, does that make sense? It will add to the design at the back, and we've got this little mixture going down. Okay, we get the general idea. These small areas, I've been known to just dab a bit on the end of the cocktail stick and just let it drip in like so. Okay, let's continue and fill this one in. Right, there's the last of our resin all gone in. 3 different batches in there, so we've got to keep mixing those reds in together just to make sure we don't get too much of a difference in colour. And we're not far off at that, once it's all cured nicely. Hopefully we're somewhere near. So as we've done all that, when you go across with a little lighter, and that just helps any of those little bubbles disappear. Or if you want to bring out the big guns, just skim off, and I'll come back in 5 minutes and basically just go over that one more time. Now find a cover it all over. Any flies, dust, they will find it. Now we'll leave this for a good 24 hours, and when we come back, this little project will be finished.
Right, that's it. It's been about 24 hours later. Personally, I'd leave this for another 3 or 4 days. Resin manufacturers do recommend a good 30 days to fully cure. That seems a little bit over the top, but I am not a resin manufacturer. So this is basically the next day, and we can see nicely set solid. I've had no issues whatsoever. There's a couple of little specks down here. If you want to really be picky, you can just see those little ones here, and that's maybe just something that's come up from the back, and I should have gone back and pushed it back down into the resin. But apart from that, everything else has gone fine. So that's it. This little project is finished. So it's a lover, not for the way she silenced my demons, but for the way her demons danced with mine. Now originally this was a I love him, not for the way he, and I basically took a letter from one, put it somewhere else, and added that letter onto there, turn it into a and a she instead of a him and a he kind of thing, if you know what I mean. So you can play about with your templates and suit it to what's the project you're looking for. Now we routed it out on recycled pine. Just can't remember the size of it. It comes in at roughly, that's 11 inches by 15. And for the routed outside of things, remember, I have little CNC bits. These are just the bits I use, and I've got no problem with them. There is other bits out there, but they come with a bigger price tag. And those little end milling bits for all your clear out. And then we tied it up with that little flexi cable, remember, on the Dremel. And then for colour wise, good old bit of boiled linseed oil. That's just for the main lettering itself. And for the framework, remember, we routed out the framework, so it's nice, one big solid piece, bit of dark teak. And for me, as always in my projects, bit of varnish spray. That just seals everything and gives it a bit of a shine. And for the resin, Vista one, my favourite at the moment. There is other resins out there, and they do exactly the same thing. And for me, I prefer to use acrylic paints. You can use powders, inks, dyes for colouring your resin with. But for a good solid colour, and price wise, you cannot go wrong with acrylic paints. And that's it. This little project is finished. We'll pop a little hanger on the back for hanging purposes. Thank you very much for watching.